Let's take a look at all this interesting stuff at the top of the application window. What we have up here is the ribbon. Now, if you're coming to Excel 2010 from Excel 2003, this is going to look completely different to you. Gone are the toolbars and all the things that we're familiar with from those previous versions. And in their place, we now have the ribbon. Now, the ribbon is this big panel here at the top, and it contains all the commands that we're going to use to do all the cool stuff that Excel's capable of doing. But before we get to all the cool stuff, let's just take a quick look around here. First off, you'll notice that the ribbon is broken up into tabs, and the tab names run across the top. For example, we have the Home tab, Insert, Page Layout, and so forth. Now, we're going to take a quick look at each one of these in a few minutes, but what you should know right now is that when you click on a tab, all the commands that belong to that tab come to the front. Inside the tabs, each tab is further broken up into groups. The group names are at the bottom of the ribbon. For example, here we have the clipboard, font, alignment, and so forth. So frequently you might hear me say something like, go to the Home tab, the font group, and click on the bold button, in which case you'd look up first for the tab, then down at the bottom of the ribbon for the group, and then finally for the command that I mentioned. You should also know that within most of the groups you'll also find this little dimple right here. This guy is called a dialog box launcher, and when you click it, it opens a dialog box that gives you more commands that are associated with whatever group you're working with at the time. Here you can see the Format Cells dialog box is opened with the Font tab in the front, just by clicking the Font dialog box launcher. If I click the Alignment dialog box launcher, then I get the same Format Cells dialog box with the Alignment tab in the front. Once again, if you're coming to this version of Excel from a previous version, the dialog boxes themselves are going to look very much the same as they have in the previous versions. They haven't changed very much in there, but what has changed is how to get to them. Now, you can still use your old familiar ways of getting to things in most cases, but Microsoft has made it really easy to quickly and intuitively get where you want to go with the ribbon. For some dialog box launchers, instead of getting a dialog box, you actually get a task pane. Here in the clipboard group, when I click the launcher, it actually opens another pane on the left-hand side. You can close that task pane by just clicking the X here. Now, I really like having the ribbon visible here so I can quickly get to the things that I want to visit. But if you're one of those people that doesn't like any clutter at all on your worksheet, you can quickly hide the ribbon by just double-clicking on one of the tabs. For example, if I double-click on the Home tab, it just hides the entire ribbon. Now, if I need anything from the ribbon, I can get back to it quickly just by clicking once on the tab that I want to use. And then, once I've done something, like click in the worksheet, it goes away. So click once, click the command that you want, and then when you go into the worksheet again and click in the worksheet, it disappears. If you work around like that for a while and you decide that you really want the ribbon to come back permanently, then all you have to do is double-click on any of the tabs, and that just cements it back into place. Over on the right-hand side, you'll also notice this little button right here, called the Minimize the Ribbon button, and you can just click that and accomplish the same thing. Again, when you click on that button, this is just temporary, and when you click in the worksheet, the ribbon goes away. However, if you take a look right there where that button used to be, there's now a new button called Expand the Ribbon. Now let's take a quick look at what these tabs are all about. First off, on the Home tab, this is where you're going to find most of your common formatting elements. Here you'll find things like your font, font size, bold, italic, underline, the borders button, and the ability to change the fill color, the font color, and then a couple of new buttons, these two guys here, which quickly allow you to bump up the size of your text. When we go to the Insert tab, here you'll find commands to insert objects on top of the Excel worksheet. For example, you can insert pictures and clip art and shapes. We even have this nice little group here for inserting charts. Whenever you want to work with the page layout, that is, the layout that people are going to see when you print your document, you'll go to the Page Layout tab. Here you can set things like the margins, the orientation of the document, and the page size. Next up is the Formula tab. Here we have a large Insert Function button. If you've ever used this in a previous version, you'll be happy to know that it's the same button that you find right here. It's just located in two different places now. I guess they didn't want you to miss it, so they made it really big here. Also, you'll find things like the Auto Sum button, and then a function library to help you find functions. Now, if you don't know anything about functions, just hang on, we're going to get to that. On the Data tab, you'll find tools to help you work with data in a database type situation. This allows you to sort your columns and filter your data and do things like data validation and what-if analysis. You'll go to the Review tab to get your document ready to go out into the public. Here's where you do things like spell checking and research and working with a thesaurus. Here's where you'll also go to add comments and then to protect your worksheet so people can't overwrite your formulas. On the View tab, you'll find tools to help you change the view in the application window. For example, right here we have this Zoom group, and interestingly enough, the tools in the Zoom group have a corresponding tool down here in the Zoom slider. For example, if you click on the Zoom button, this opens a dialog box which allows you to quickly zoom in to a predefined magnification, or you can just type in a custom percentage. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, just to the left of the Zoom slider, we have this button here that shows a percentage, and when you click it, well, look at that. It brings you to the same Zoom dialog box. So two ways to get to it. The other tabs you see on my screen, Developer, Add-ins, and Acrobat, are optional tabs that must be turned on. By default, a new installation of Excel won't display these, so if you're looking at your monitor and wondering, where are those things? Well, don't be too concerned. We'll talk more about them later in the course. Your collection of tabs probably looks more like this and stops with the View tab. However, there are some other tabs that you may see from time to time, depending on what you're working on. They're called Contextual tabs, and they only appear on the ribbon in context with whatever you're working with. For example, if we go to the Insert tab and choose Shapes, and I'll just pick a triangle here and just draw that out on the screen. Watch when I release my mouse. In the ribbon, a new Format tab appears under the Drawing Tools heading. The commands and buttons in the Format tab are dedicated to this triangle. They provide options for formatting, like changing the color and the border, or changing the shape fill, or changing the size. As soon as I click away from the triangle, notice that the Format tab will disappear. If I click back on the triangle, it comes back. There are lots of different contextual tabs available to us. Let me delete the triangle. We'll go over to the Insert tab again, and I'll just choose Column in the Charts group. Now, we're going to insert a chart, but it won't have anything on it at this point. I just wanted to point out that once you insert a chart, now we have the Chart Tools tab that contains 3 contextual tabs, Design, Layout, and Format. And each one of these are dedicated to that specific chart. We'll look at the specifics for working with each of the contextual tabs when we get to the sections that require them. For example, we'll talk about the Format contextual tab when we work with shapes and pictures. We'll talk about chart tools whenever we get to the charts. But for now, just wanted to let you know they're there. To turn off the chart tools, click away from the chart. And I'll just delete that chart here. It's possible that as you look at the ribbon at the top of your screen and compare it to the one in my video, that you may discover that there's a little difference in the appearance, and that could be because of the width of our application window. Whenever you click the Restore Down button so that Excel can be resized, you'll notice that as I change the width here, that the ribbon changes to accommodate that. The more narrow the width, the less room there is for some of these options to appear. But when I expand the window back out again, you can see that the ribbon changes to make room to let these options breathe. Going back to the left-hand side, you'll see the File tab. The File tab is colored green, and it's given that distinction because it doesn't hold commands like the other tabs do. The File tab contains what's called the Backstage view. And this is where you'll find all the commands that you normally find in the File menu of other programs. For example, here you can save or open a document. You can get a list of the recent documents that you've had opened. And you can do other things like set the permissions for your workbook and prepare the workbook for sharing. We'll talk about the Backstage view a little later in more detail. Next up is the formula bar. Although it's not officially part of the ribbon, it does sit right underneath the ribbon, and that's this whole section right here. The formula bar contains the formula bar itself, the Insert Function button, and the name box. Now the name box simply shows you the name of the cell that you have active. For example, you can see here that C2 is the active cell, as indicated by the black border around it, and you can see C2 in the name box. When I click in cell B2, the name box changes. The Insert Function button is where you would go to get help working with functions. When you click on it, it opens the Insert Function dialog box. The formula bar is where you'll go to enter new formulas or edit existing formulas, or even just to see a formula that's already in a cell. And finally, at the very top left of the application window, we have the Quick Access Toolbar. By default, the Quick Access Toolbar only contains 3 commands: save, undo, and redo. But if you'd like to add more commands, you can click the little button to the right here, Customize Quick Access Toolbar, and this gives you a list of commands that you can quickly add to the Quick Access Toolbar. For example, I'm going to add the New command, and this adds a button to create a new workbook. Then I'm going to add the Open command, and this adds a button for me to open documents. And I also might do Quick Print. So you can see it's really easy to add commands to the Quick Access Toolbar, and there's a whole lot of other commands that you don't see here in this list that we're going to get to later when we talk about customizing the ribbon. Now, if you're brand new to Excel, you might be looking over this little tutorial going, wow, there's a lot of stuff there. But don't worry, we're going to take everything in a nice, easy succession, and you're going to get a chance to work with these elements and see how the commands all work together, and you're going to get good at this stuff. So not to worry at this point. Right now, it's just enough to have a little terminology under your belt, and we're going to revisit those terms over and over again as we go through the course. Just hang tight, and as we work through the different exercises later on in the course, you'll really get familiar with these things.